forever. You just saw him a second ago. Jon Lunn from the Spider-Man games. Sorry, Spider-Man.
Spidermind game.
It should. You know, I was watching that this morning, the new trailer. So it's on fresh in my mind. But Spider-Man,
We would get absolutely murdered if we called ourselves Spider-Man games. It's definitely Spidermind.
So Spider-Man. And where's that come from? Where's the Spider-Man part?
Well, when we were looking for names to give the company, we were trying to think of the idea of the games master weaving a web, a story, and we wanted to open up. We didn't really know what particular game or game scenarios we wanted to specialize in. We kind of wanted a broad, and we just thrashed around a load of words. And when Oliver's, my business partner's other half, mentioned, "Oh, well, why don't you call it Spidermind?" We were like, "Oh, we quite like that." Left it to soak overnight, and the next day we were like, "Yep, definitely, that's what we'll call it." So it came quite quickly.
Fantastic. So, how did the company start? Where did you begin on your journey?
It's amateur dramatics. It was a Shakespeare play, Merry Wives of Windsor, that Oliver and I were in, local Amdram society. We were doing one of these productions in the garden of the local pub, and because Oliver and I had bit parts that didn't involve much acting, and there was quite a lot of hanging about in the pub garden talking to each other, which is, on a summer's day, quite a nice thing to do. And we got chatting about various things we liked. I mentioned that I played role-playing games when I was at school, but I hadn't been involved in anything since then. And he was like, "Oh, great, well, I'm a GM on a Tuesday night thing, why don't you come round?" So that started. And also, we found out that we both shared a love of the 1980s computer game Elite. And that got us talking on quite a few successive Tuesday evenings about, wouldn't it be fantastic if we could launch a role-playing game? Oliver had always had one that he'd wanted to write and publish for the Elite universe. Well, there was this new iteration of the Elite computer game that was launched 30 years after the original game that we both played when we were kids. And that, wouldn't it be great if we could launch some kind of, I don't know, free-to-play, fan-related role-playing game based on that? And so we started working together on that as a kind of partnership. And then fast forward, we got in touch with Frontier Developments, who make the Elite game. They said, "Yeah, you can have a license, but we don't want to give you one for sort of a fan-based project. We want to give you a commercial license for you to actually properly sell stuff." And suddenly we were like, so this idea of us working together on a sort of hobby basis, publishing role-playing games, might have to become a little bit more grown up and serious. Fast forward to releasing a card game for Frontier Developments. And then from then it's just grown and grown. And 2 years ago now, just before lockdown, we launched the Level Up, which is our gaming table, and that raised enough that enabled us both to give up our day jobs and to start doing this full time.
Fantastic. And I remember Elite really fondly. It was pretty mind-blowing at the time.
Completely completely new tech, procedurally generating an entire space simulation game in 250 kilobytes of memory. I mean, it was just, at the time, incredibly new, and the guys who'd created it were geniuses. And I remember losing weeks of my summer holidays with a friend of mine who on his Acorn Electron. It was brilliant.
Yeah, we had the Commodore 64.
Did you? Right, yeah.
Cycling down to Helsham from where we lived, and then picking it up and getting it back and finding it didn't work and having to cycle back again. And then hours of waiting for my brothers to finish playing. And then, for those who haven't played it, look it up. It's totally iconic. Black and white vector graphics. It's a trading game, ostensibly, isn't it?
It is.
With some classical musical docking.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, it's the Blue Danube as its docking music for the if you're lucky enough to have a docking computer. Otherwise, you've got to do it manually. But no, it was just such a seminal game of its era that I mean, the history behind it is one of the creators went off and set up Frontier Developments. He released a couple of further iterations of it. And then in about 2017, 15, 14, somewhere like that, can't really remember, that they kickstarted this new Elite Dangerous, which is the one that the multiplayer online game version, which is currently available. And and so it was that game that we approached Frontier for a license to make a role-playing game on, and they were like, yeah, great, but this has to be grown up, fully commercial, and so we suddenly found ourselves in the world of publishing, game publishing, and have kind of loved every minute ever since.
What were you doing at that time, work-wise?
I was a funeral celebrant.
Oh.
So I was conducting funerals, religious, non-religious funerals, for a number of funeral directors in and around the Kent and East Sussex area. But working from home, and every Tuesday night was D&D with Oliver, who's my business partner now, and so that's where we started working together, was having those "wouldn't it be lovely if" conversations, which I'm pretty sure every game fan has thought about at one point or another. I've got this idea, I'd love to make a fill in the gap, and we did, and 4 years later, here we are.
That's amazing. Well, I'm just looking at your website, and if you do want to see what Jon and Oliver have been up to, go to spidermindgames.com. And you've got, is that right?
That's it. That's
the one to go to. And it's got all your different projects. And the really interesting thing about your website, it's a real variety of things that you've been producing. You've got the Elite Dangerous, and then you've got the Legendary Kingdoms, which is, of course, the international game book. There is a game book. We'll talk about that in a moment. And you've got the Level Up, and you've got the Ice Dice as well. So
that's right. And we're currently running a Kickstarter for Dragonite Dice, which is I think it's got 6 or 7 days left. So if you see it before then, do go over to Kickstarter and search Dragonite Dice and have a look. But it's absolutely by accident that this is all as it is. There's no sort of master plan, except to say that Oliver creates the games and I create the accessories. And I think we found that these things have worked. But as I said, by accident. I mean, the Level Up, the gaming table, which is sort of a modular tiled table that you can build to stand on sort of metal 6-inch legs, and that raises the actual board game playing surface for your RPG above all the rest of the stuff that maybe you would want on your dining room table at the time. It kind of extends your real estate. And that came about because of the Tuesday night game night that I played with Oliver. We were 7 of us around a kitchen table. Of course, with character sheets, it was Tuesday night, so it was pizza night, drinks, your dice bag, and all of that kind of stuff. When Oliver was like, right, you've bumped into X, Y, or Z creature, roll for initiative, and he got his battle map out, it was a real pain to have to clear the table to make sure that the map was put down. So I looked at trying to get something that would enable us to put a board on top of everything else. So thanks IKEA, but a very thin computer monitor stand from IKEA that's this long strip of sort of plywood with 4 little legs either side, but the legs are only that far apart from each other. And then I kind of thought, well, if I put a bit of board over the top of it, I'm sure loads of people have done this, built themselves this extension. And then once we'd started playing on it, we played for it for about a year, I started wondering whether this was something we could also add to our growing stable of products. But I had no idea about manufacturing, so I had to look into that. I had no idea about anything to do with running a successful Kickstarter campaign, so we had to look into marketing, and that was what really gave birth to Spidermind Games as a company. But of course, Oliver's wanted to write a game book, so he was like, well, whilst you're playing around with your table for your table, I want to write a game book. And so that's why we've grown, but we're not exactly gaming accessories, and we're not exactly specifically board games. We're a bit of everything, because it's pretty much just stuff we want to see, we want to buy, or we want to make.
That's amazing. That's great. I mean, it's very exciting to think about what you're going to be doing in the future.
I know. Yeah.
So could be anything, which is cool. Now let's talk about Legendary Kingdoms.
Yes.
Which is beautiful artwork. I'm really
Thank you.
loving the presentation, and it looks very exciting. And you've got another book out as well. Is that, we've got Valley of Bones, and also Crown and Tower.
That's right. So there are going to be eventually 6 books in the series. Valley of Bones is book 1. That's out, printed, and available to pick up. Now, we ran the Kickstarter in February of this year for Crown and Tower. That has just been completed and has been sent off to the printers. So the backers for Crown and Tower will be getting their PDF later on today or tomorrow. That's when we're going to be uploading it because it's just been finished. And then they'll be getting their print copy a little bit later on when the prints are done. And that's going to be book 2. And then we're looking to release the next book in the series for the next 4 years. So it'll be a book a year. Wow. And we're very lucky so far with having launched the first one off our own back. We decided just to publish it under the company name. Yeah. But we then ummed and ahed about running a Kickstarter for the game book because we started to see, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, this slight resurgence in the interest in game books over the last few years. And if you have a look on, we were inspired by Alba that was on there. That was one Kickstarter. There was, there were a bunch of very good games that were raising decent amounts of money and increasing, we thought, maybe even increasing the number of people who had played game books. Of course, we were always used to just providing the game books to the audience that had already known and loved the Fighting Fantasy Lone Wolf stuff from back in the day. Yeah. Whereas now we were starting to see that there was this new audience coming to it. So we thought, if we launch it on Kickstarter, maybe we can encourage role-playing gamers and board gamers and people who like reading fantasy fiction to come along as well. And we were very lucky that we did as well as we did. And now we've got a very enthusiastic and very strong audience who've read both books. And so, it can only grow in strength from here on.
Quite right. And I think it's partly down to presentation. I think that's why the original Fighting Fantasy books did so well, is because the artwork really got a niche there. And just looking through your artwork, it's beautiful. It has got a kind of a retro feel about it as well.
Yeah. There are 2 artists who are involved in the project. The cover art is a gent by the name of Claudio Pillion. He is probably he's one of the concept artists on Game of Thrones. So quite a lot of the artwork that you'll see back when Game of Thrones was being released and there were trailers, that some of that stuff is his, but quite a lot of concept artwork sort of gets produced for the production company and then never gets seen. But we loved some of the stuff he did. So we approached him, asked him if he could do us the covers. He said yes. But the real find, and we landed on our feet with this one, was Robin Smith to do all of the inside black and white artwork. And Robin has been working on 2000 AD for years, and he is one of the creators behind the Judge Dredd cartoon strips. And so the amount of skill, and we didn't deserve to have Robin and an artist of his caliber come and work on our very, very new game book. But he lived locally. Our designer, who has put together the production of those books, knows Robin, so introduced us, and Robin was delighted because this will be a project that he can put his own stamp on. When you work for a magazine like 2000 AD, you can produce reams and reams and reams of work, and yes, your name goes down in the credits as one of the artists involved, but it's not really your book. It's not your work, as it were. Whereas this, for Robin, is very much, he's as much involved in the creation of these books as we are, and his artwork comes from him enjoying the books and from lots of conversations with Oliver when Oliver's writing it, and it's just brilliant. And of course, it looks a bit retro because Robin has a style that people were used to when 2000 AD first came out.
Yeah.
But also we wanted him to do that because we want to try and fuse new and old. We want to bring over people who are used to the Final Fantasy and Lone Wolf books, but also try and increase the capability of a game book and introduce it to new audiences. And I think
what age group is it pitched to? Is it for older audience or
I mean, there's no gratuitous violence, sex, or anything that would want us to push it to sort of 18 plus. But we recommend 14 onwards because of just the use of English.
Yeah.
There are some adult themes in the books, which of course we've put in a little disclaimer at the front of book 2, because there's a particular part in that which is, it's not adult in the fact that it's graphic, but it deals with the story arc, which you could potentially get involved in, which is of a grown-up and mature theme.
Yeah.
But we know for a fact that there are people who have fans of game books who've got kids who have GM'd, which is one of the things you can do with this book, has GM'd their kids through the adventure. Because as well as a game book being something you can play very much on your own, because you control a group of 4 characters, we have heard of and seen in action player groups using this book where a GM where a player wants to GM for the first time, is a little intimidated by the prospect of starting a role-playing game. Here are the rules, read these, and then have an imagination, and then know, and then create a world and whatever. So we've actually had people use the book to take their group of 4 players through it, and that's very possible. We've even got Becca Scott from Geek and Sundry did a review, which is on the Kickstarter page for Crown and Tower, and she also did a playthrough with 3 of her friends. Worth watching, only because complete party kill. They all died, but that's happened. That can happen.
Are the mechanics fairly straightforward? Have you got?
Yes, I mean there are some new aspects and some really used assets and mechanics from some of the seminal work. So, for example, I know a lot of Oliver's inspiration for the use of the sort of more open world came from the Fable Land series, but he's also introduced some aspects that he wanted to try out and thought would work that he hadn't seen in game books before. But there are, for example, he wants to have a game book which is open world, so you can basically from the beginning of your adventure choose where you want to go, and it has a coding system which allows the book to remember what you've done previously. So if you go back to the cave but you've already killed the salt dragon, you don't have to kill it again. If the baddie's been overthrown in a particular area, then the book remembers that. But using group mechanics as well is something that, yes, has been used before, but there are some ways in which the group is also tied together between themselves so that there is an affinity system involved in the book. Anybody who's played any online sort of first-person shooter or RPGs like Skyrim or Fallout will know that there is a companion system where when you pick up a companion, and then there's an affinity system where if you gain in affinity with that person, whether it's romantic or not, you gain certain perks whilst that companion remains with you. Well, in the book, you get the same thing. So it's broadened the mechanics to try and encompass much more of what I think players would expect to see nowadays, rather than it just being a single person linear progression.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That sounds very exciting. And obviously you've got these ones that you're already planning, but does Oliver have time to do any other sort of game books at the moment, or any other sort of RPG?
Well, we are in very early stages in discussion with another game book author who has recently produced some fantastic work. He's he's Martin Nouch, and he produced a series of sort of steampunk Victoriana style steam Highwayman is the name of the book, and we've been chatting with Martin. It's very, very early stages, but we'd love to work in partnership with him. He's suggested an idea. We love it. So as I said, very early stages, but certainly something that we'd love to be able to announce when we've made that arrangement official. But very exciting stuff moving forward.
What about an Elite Dangerous game book? Or you've got the RPG, haven't you? But
we have, yeah, and you can also play the RPG solo. So I don't know whether Oliver would want to look at doing anything for Elite Dangerous, and of course we'd have to go through the process of applying for another license through Frontier because we're connected with them. Whereas it's easier to have a new world creation like Legendary Kingdoms. But yeah, I mean, I think Oliver's enjoyed the process so much that I don't think there's any chance of him giving up after the LK series. I think he'd like to progress. I mean, we're even currently playing a weekly game book online for the backers of the Legendary Kingdoms Kickstarter, where each week we release a new chapter in an ongoing kind of tiny little micro adventure that some of the characters are playing that Oliver's writing on a weekly basis. So he loves the writing, he loves the creating. So yeah, I am sure there'll be lots more to come as long as people continue to like Legendary Kingdoms and continue to like game books, and if it continues to grow in the way we've seen, then I think it's going to be a really exciting time for game books in general.
I think so. It's amazing the creativity of the game book designers and authors at the moment. They're again all slightly different. They're all bringing something new. I think next 40 years is going to be a very interesting time.
Really looking forward to it. Yeah, and I think we've come in at the right time because it is on its way up. As our board games, as our role-playing games, as the geek becomes cool and beyond, where other people start to see why it was that we were interested in this stuff when we were younger. I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger.
Fantastic. And can you see maybe Legendary Kingdoms going digital, becoming a computer game or an app? Or
I mean, we have been approached by during the Kickstarter, approached by a couple of companies that wanted to give it a go. We have got an app that is being done as a piece of work, as a piece of fan work by a guy who got in touch with us, asked if he could produce, and it's very much a companion app. So it's not an app to play the game with, it's an app to play on your tablet or whatever, to keep a track of stats and characters and all that sort of stuff. But Jordan's been doing a superb job on that. So that is going to be our officially endorsed Spidermind Games LK app. But if someone were to want to turn this into something broader, then I think we would probably only look at that once all 6 books are released, because there are, without wanting to give too much away, there are several reasons why there are 6 books, and there are several things that link all 6 books together, which you won't discover if you've only played book 1 or 2. So it will be really difficult, we think, to sort of give the book 1 or even book 1 and 2 to an app developer and say, make a game based on this, when we're only a third of the way into the story. We're only a third of the way into the development of the land, the histories, the characters. So I think once we've done all 6 books, then and the entire story has been released, then if someone wanted to try their hand at making an app, we wouldn't say no. It's not something we want to get involved in particularly ourselves. I think we know our limits, but I'm sure there are going to be people out there who will be perfectly capable, and we'd love to look at it.
Fantastic. Now, you've obviously got a Kickstarter at the moment which has got a few days left.
Yes, that's right. I think it's got 5, 6 days left. Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about that, and maybe about have you got another Kickstarter planned for after that?
Yes, we have. So at the moment, the Kickstarter we're launching, we're running at the moment, is for a concept called Dragonite Dice, which, quite simply, if you're a fan of dice like I am, I've always loved the dice where you've dropped something in the middle. Especially there's a number of handmade dice on Etsy where they've taken a little silver disc with an eye printed on it, lizard, dragon, cat, whatever, and dropped it in the dice. But of course, the way the manufacturing goes with that is that it's an item dropped in liquid that then cures. So that item will sit wherever it sits, and it's a sort of two-dimensional disc. So when you're looking at the eye, it looks great. When you're looking at it from sideways or from the back, it's either a silver disc or it's a slither of metal in the middle of the dice. It's not satisfying as much as I think is if, wouldn't it be great if you could get like a gemstone, a sphere, place it directly in the middle of the dice so it is balanced, and then in this case, because I like dragon eyes, we've printed the eye of a dragon on the front, which is then orientated to look out through the top number. So if you're an RPG fan and you're rolling your D20, if you roll a critical, the dragon eye is looking up through that space. And so because nothing like that had been made, we went to an engineering company and we designed a new way of making dice. And the results, we think, are spectacular. But any new design process is expensive. Any new product is going to be very difficult to bring to market unless there's a fan base. And so when we launched the Kickstarter, what we were hoping for was kind of like a thumbs up from the dice collecting community, that this is something that they would want to see. And so far, the Kickstarter has done phenomenally well. As I said, a couple of days left, but we've already got plans. These are the chromatic dragons we're currently running.
Yeah.
So the Kickstarter, it makes available 5 sets: the red, the green, the blue, the black, and the white dragons. But we're already looking at a similar 5 collection set for the metallic dragons next year. There's already Legendary Kingdoms Book 3 that Oliver is in the process of writing, and again, that is also going to be something that's going to be launched next year. But yes, the Dragonite dice, go give them a little look over on the Kickstarter page if you're interested in dice. But we're really, really pleased with how they've ended up.
Where are they getting produced? Where Masha?
Yeah, so we've jumped into bed with like a product development company based in the US, and they have a partnership with a number of manufacturers based out of Taiwan. Yeah. So at the moment, we've done all of our production for the Level Up and for the Ice Dice in Taiwan, and we'll probably be using facilities over there to make the dice.
Fantastic! They look amazing, absolutely amazing. And there's 6 days to go.
That's it.
Yeah, so I think when this comes out, it'll be 5 days to go. Congratulations, that's amazing. Well done.
Thank you.
Now, and after that, you must have a plan for the next Kickstarter, or is that top secret?
No. I mean, it's going to be likely that the next LK will come out in probably February, March-ish. That's a very vague time, but that's the Pirates of the Splintered Isle, Book 3. Oliver has already completed the first section of it. I had a playthrough the other day. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But yeah, so that looks like that'll be done early next year. Yeah. And then entirely dependent on when the Dragon Eye dice have been fulfilled, will then depend on when the Metallic Dragons set are made available, because we don't want to run the next dice campaign until the previous one has been fulfilled. Backers have had the dice in their hands and they can see close up and personal. I mean, I keep looking at my set that I've got set out here. These are only the prototype dice, but they're all arranged with the eyes looking at me, and they just look amazing. So I think I just want to get all the backers confident that that they see on the screen and the photos we've provided with them are exactly what they have in their hands, and then we can launch the next one. So that'll be a summer Kickstarter for next
That's
year.
fantastic. That's very exciting. Brilliant. Now, if people want to follow you, John, and or follow Spidermind Games, what's the best way for them to do that and find out about the news?
Best thing to do is our Facebook page. If you are on Facebook, do follow Spidermind Games. There are 2 private groups that Spidermind Games run, one of which is the Legendary Kingdoms private group. Now, you don't have to be a backer to previous Kickstarters to join the LK private group, but that is where you will get most of the upcoming release information on the game book. If you're interested in everything that we're producing, then the Facebook page is probably the best place to have a look.
That's great. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Well, no, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolute pleasure. And we look forward to maybe seeing you next year. Are you going to any live events? Have you got anything planned for next year, maybe? Or even
next year, definitely. Yeah, I mean, this year, probably not. I think it's a bit too late to get anything lined up. But next year, we are going to look at trying to do as much as we possibly can. I mean, Jonathan Green's convention that we went to, I think the last live one we went to was in 2018, I think. But yeah, I mean, you know, if there's anything we can go to, I think we'll be there. UK Games Expo next year. I mean, as long as it's something that piques our interest, and of course, as long as there's, you know, it's safe to do so, we'd love to turn up.
Yeah, quite right. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you again for all your time, and have a fantastic weekend. And you know, good luck for all your future projects.
Well, again, thanks for having me on, and yeah, it's been fun.
Pleasure.